Welcome, everybody, to this Thursday edition of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph. Along with my sidekick, Gwen Caldwell, we are going to embark on a journey tonight to piss you off. That's basically what we're going to do. We want to rile you up a bit. And to do that, I want to start the broadcast off with a quote. And this quote comes from, a couple thousand years back. Nothing big. But anyway, Marcus Tullius Cicero. If you've never heard of Marcus Tullius Cicero, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He was a Roman philosopher. Lived around the time of 100 BC or so. And very, very intelligent. Extremely intelligent. One of the things that are very interesting about Cicero is that in the time of the Revolution, the American Revolution, Cicero was almost required reading for anybody that was going through some sort of schooling process, especially if you were going to go on to like higher education. Cicero was one of the main reads that you would kind of take on, especially in not just philosophical terms, but the guy makes total sense. It's unbelievable how this guy makes sense and kind of sees into the future. So what I want to do is start off with this quote from Cicero because it kind of helps shape the way the broadcast is going to go tonight. And it goes like this. A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it can't survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known, and he carries his banners openly against the city. But the traitor moves among those within the gates freely, his sly whispers rustling through all alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears no traitor. He speaks in the accents familiar to his victim, and he wears their face in their garments, and he appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of a nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of a city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to be feared. The traitor is the plague. And that is so important to understand because it really shapes everything that we face, Gwen. I mean, when basically what he's trying to say or what he's framing is exactly what we're going through today, but on a massive scale. I mean, think about how many people fit that description in government today or in places of power.
Right. No kidding. Terrible.
It's unbelievable. So we're going to start the broadcast off with our first story of the night. And it's a very, very important story because it deals with a traitor. And in this case, the traitor, the usurper, is District Judge Joel Med. And this is in North Dakota, folks. You may remember the case of Rodney Broussard. And he was that farmer that had a 16-hour standoff with police. Well, today, a court upholds domestic drone use in an arrest of American citizen. And this is U.S. News reporting. And it says, a judge denied a request to dismiss charges Wednesday against Rodney Broussard, a man arrested last year after a 16-hour standoff with police at his Lakota, North Dakota ranch. Broussard's lawyer argued that law enforcement's warrantless use of an unmanned military-like surveillance aircraft and outrageous governmental conduct warranted dismissal of the case, according to documents obtained by U.S. News. But District Judge Joel Med wrote, quote, there was no improper use of an unmanned aerial vehicle, and the drone, quote, appears to have had no bearing on these charges being contested here. So let's stop right there for a second, Gwen, and just think about this. He said that there was no improper use of an unmanned aerial vehicle. They had no warrant.
Right.
They had no warrant. So right off the bat, this guy is mad. Literally. They need to take the E out of his name, because it's spelled M-E-D-D, and just change it to an A, because he's mad. He's insane. What do you think, Gwen?
Oh, yeah. It's crazy, the encroachment on our freedoms and our liberties. Absolutely unacceptable. And, Joe, where the hell is the outrage?
Where's the outrage? Court records state that last June, 6 cows wandered onto Broussard's 3,000-acre farm, about 60 miles west of Grand Forks. Broussard allegedly refused to return the cows, which led to a long, armed standoff with the Great Forks Police Department. At some point during the standoff, Homeland Security, through an agreement with local police, offered up the use of an unmanned Predator drone. It's just one of those things. Well, we got this spare drone laying around, man. Why don't you go ahead and you can borrow it? Which was used for, quote, surveillance, according to court documents. And again, no warrant. Grand Forks SWAT team chief Bill Mackey said in an interview that the drone was used to ensure Broussard and his family members, who were also charged, didn't leave the farm and were unarmed during the arresting raid. Broussard faces felony terrorizing and theft of property charges and a misdemeanor criminal mischief charge. Although his charges weren't dismissed, Broussard won a motion to move the trial from Nelson County, with a population of 3,100, to nearby Grand Forks County, which is good because he'll actually, probably get a little more of a fair trial. But I mean, according to this, if this judge is any indication of what the mindset is there, I mean, this is absurd. And anyway, it goes on to say that Broussard is believed to be the only American citizen who was arrested with the assistance of a drone on U.S. soil. John Villasenor of Washington, D.C.'s based Brookings Institute says the legality of domestic drone use likely stems from 2 Supreme Court cases that allow police to use public navigable airspace for evidence gathering. Domestic drone use has become a controversial topic over the past several months, with Congress directing the Federal Aviation Administration to devise guidelines for proper drone use. Because, Gwen, they know what proper drone use should be, right?
When you think. The problem, this is militarizing civil law enforcement again. And, the U.S. military currently uses 7,500 drones, and they make up a third of the Air Force aircrafts. But an average drone can zoom in and read a milk carton from 60,000 feet away. Now, why did they need that kind of technology for some Joe Blow farmer out in the middle of freaking North Dakota? Are you kidding me?
That is, the only thing
of money.
Well, the only thing I can think of, right, is it is a taste of things to come, that perhaps it could be sort of a training exercise or a get your feet wet type of thing for bigger things, and that's the thing that I don't like. It's almost akin to programming people to accept the fact that they're there. And so with that, folks, we've just begun to start talking about the stuff that should really get you irritated. So when we come back, we'll talk more about this drone situation, and we'll also get into the Cybersecurity Act, and real unemployment, and the USDA. All that and more when we come back after these messages. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget the email address to the Freedom Link is thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. That's thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. Joe Joseph and Gwen Caldwell coming at you with a little bit of drone talk. And so this next journey down the whole drone rabbit hole, if you will, talks about a new generation of deadly unmanned weapons. And this is The Guardian. It talks about business booming at the vast base in Nevada, where tomorrow's top guns are learning to target terrorists from afar. Yes, that's right, folks. They are converting pilots. They're converting pilots now into drone pilots. The electronic cavern is dark, save from the glow of consoles. And Lieutenant Colonel Mike Weaver surveys his apprentice warriors with satisfaction as they project American might halfway around the world. I hate that term, Gwen. I really do. You know, project American might. Is it American? You know, do the people really support this? I have to wonder, like, if you gave them, if they were somehow receptive to the poop, the straight poop, you know what I mean? How receptive would they be that all of this is happening in their name?
Well, you know, Joe, it's kind of a funny thing for me when I read this stuff and I witness the news about the. I think the thing that is most frightening for me is that, you know, this whole younger generation that are in the military now and that are going into law enforcement, they grew up on playing those games and you get so many lives. And doing these drones, they sit in front of a screen and it's just like a game to them.
Yeah.
It's just another kill shot, except they don't lose lives, you know.
Well, no, because it's like a video game, right?
Right. That is exactly what it's like. And that worries me. Second of all, most law enforcement now, new hires are coming straight out of the military. A lot of those guys have been, you know, they've been trained or ordered to fire on civilians. So to them, it's just it's another game, or it's just another civilian. They're not associating it as their neighbor or their uncle, or, you know, because it's like remote viewing your target. There's
right.
there's no emotional attachment to it. And that bothers me. That bothers me a lot. And when they're talking about having thousands and thousands of these drones flying over our skies, and you don't know when they're watching you, why you would be targeted for watching, or when somebody's going to start laughing and accidentally press the hit button, and you're going to be the victim of a drone attack.
Right, but you hit it spot on. It's just another way that you desensitize these men and women to their humanity. They lose it. You know, it's just another thing, because now they're just killing this little figure on a screen. You know, you don't have to look that figure in the eye or anything else, you know, because it's far away. And so one crew, 2 young men in flight suits seated before half a dozen screens, prepare to fire missiles from a remotely piloted aircraft at a boatload of suspected insurgents in Afghanistan. Another crew circles a suspicious bulge by a roadside in Iraq and feeds coordinates to ground troops. Another tracks what appears to be a vehicle in Yemen. Quote, "There's not a lot of time for emotion here. There's a war going on, and we have a job to do," says Weaver, a veteran F-15 fighter pilot. Right there again, you know. Obviously, this gentleman is dedicated to what he's doing, and that's great. But if he only knew the truth as far as what he's dedicated to, I wonder if that would change his opinion, you know, because it certainly changed mine. Being a veteran, at the time, you know, you don't think too much about, well, you know, we're defending democracy. We're defending the Constitution. We're defending the people's right to be free. We're spreading freedom throughout the world. And you buy all that stuff because you don't know any better. You know, the average age of when I was in the Navy, the average age on my ship was 21. 21. You know, these kids, they get right out of high school. They join the Navy, they join the Marines, the Army, the Air Force, whatever, and they have no life experience except, mom and dad taking care of you, or you go to high school. That's the extent of your life experience. And then you get thrown into this. So, I mean, you don't really have the knowledge or the life experience necessary to really see through the smokescreen. And
they don't have the ability to discern the difference between what is a real threat and what is an actual threat either. Everybody's a threat, and that's what they're training law enforcement. Everybody's your enemy. Everybody is a threat. They're all enemies.
No, you're absolutely right. So Weaver, this gentleman here, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Weaver, he's speaking from Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. And that's about 8,000 miles from the scenes depicted on the screens. But he and the crews embody not only the war on terror, but the future of the U.S. military force. The missions, in fact, are simulations. The crews are students yet to earn their wings, but this vast base, covering 24,000 hectares of scorched desert, is fast becoming a type of Top Gun academy for a new generation of airmen and women who operate not from cockpits, but trailers wedged in the sand. A fleet of F-22 Raptors, state-of-the-art manned fighter jets, are to be moved to another base to let Holloman focus on training crews for unmanned MQ-1 Predators and MQ-9 Reaper drones in common parlance. The base has rapidly expanded and accelerated training to meet booming Pentagon demand. Of course, there's booming Pentagon demand. Northcom probably needs all the drones they can get with the amount of problems that they, quote, face.
Joe, what type of security clearance do these drone operators need? What's to say that they're not sitting there with these drones and they're tired of all this tyranny in America, and they decide to just start blowing up state capitals or blowing up the White House? I doubt you
would ever see that. I doubt you would ever. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but look at, Joe, when you look at the gang element in the military, very prevalent in the Army especially.
Yeah.
They're not man enough to really handle the Marines, I don't think, so they go in the Army. But, I know some Marines, and I'm telling you, once a Marine, always a Marine. And
Semper Fi, baby, Semper Fi.
Yeah, no shit. That is not where I'd want to have a problem. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, how do we know that these jihadists aren't infiltrating our military and then going into those type of jobs? You know what I'm saying? How do we know that we don't have some gangster, that joins the military? He gets military training,
right?
And all of that. And how do we know that's not going to be his field of specialty? How do we know? You know what I'm saying? I think it's not only bad for the civilians, but I think just in general, it's a bad idea to have somebody in a position of power like that is so disassociated from the end result of what you're doing with basically no accountability.
That's right, folks. Don't go away. We'll continue our drone conversation when we return in 3 minutes' time. You're listening to the Freedom Link on the Orion Talk Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget to check out the Information Nation with Ken every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time following the Freedom Link's Conspiracy Chronicles. Fantastic show. Gives you the straight poop. No BS or spin. Telling it like it is. That's Ken in the Information Nation. 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Joe Joseph and Gwen Caldwell here. And we're discussing drones and the cowardly way in which we fight wars now. You don't face the enemy anymore. Now you sit behind a damn computer console and you off people from afar, taking away any shred of humanity that these men and women have left. And so there are critics to these drone strikes, including former President Jimmy Carter, legal scholars, and human rights groups. The strikes are extrajudicial executions that violate nation sovereignty, stain U.S. moral standing, and fuel extremism. That's true, Gwen. I mean, think about it. You violate a nation's sovereignty because you're going into their airspace, killing their citizens, or even our own. Then, of course, the U.S. moral standing, which, what moral standing? You know, it stains U.S. moral standing?
We have no moral standing. You know, and really, Joe, I think since it's the government and their freaking military-industrial complex and their war machine and Halliburton and the likes, they want to kill people. They want a war. Put those bastards behind those machines and let them have their war. But, I am just so sick and tired of this overkill on everything in this country. Supersize our military, supersize policing the world, supersize, the little scuttlebutt down there in Anaheim. Let's get Blackwater down there to, take their sniper stance at Disneyland, for Christ's sakes. I mean, what has this country come to? Where is the moral integrity? Where is any level? Well, they started taking this out a long time ago, and it just seems to be the way that the way it is they started hijacking the education system, and that started basically, well, of course, this war or this trying to establish a one world government, a new world order, has been going on now for a very, very, very long time. I mean, you're talking about ancient bloodlines here that have just tried for millennia to try and make this happen. And so far to date, they have not been so successful. So this is just another attempt for them to be able to accomplish this plan. But it's through the education of people. It's by shaping their knowledge base, what they know, and so really the only effective way to combat this is for us, for each and every one of us, to re-educate the people within our sphere of influence. And that could be your neighbors, that could be your coworkers or your friends or your family. But that's the only true way that you're going to make any sort of dent in the damage that's been done. I mean, all you got to do is look around, and you can see the absolute damage that's been done to this country. Yeah, I wrote an article about this. It's on federaljack.com, and it's called "Education is the Key to Independence in America." And I did this because there was a video that it blew me away. It was a homeschool project by these homeschool kids. And I kind of want to play it for you now because it has to do with the kill list that Obama has for his drones. And it's called "I've Got a Little List." Let me play it for you people and tell me what you think. Very good. I'm going to fast forward a little bit through the humming. Now, mind you, these are all little homeschoolers. Here you go.
As someday it may happen that a conflict we must start. I've got a little list. I've got a little list of America's detractors who might well be blown apart and who'll certainly be miffed. They'll certainly be miffed. There's the oil-owning foreigners whose skin is rather brown. I push a button, then a drum will blow up half their town. All victims who are blown up to accomplices will call. No innocents, just terrorists will cast and fire them all. But wait, the obvious offensives to Congress I must tell, but not the CIA's. The drones will fit their swell. If the Army finds the drones, then Congress he must sway. So we'll hide the program deep, deep inside the insider and the others of great faith. And the pro-life activist, I've got him on the list. The whistleblower wiki-leaking into cyberspace. He can't escape my fist, I've got him on the list. The idiot who raises some objection to my plan.
You're talking about Ron Paul.
The Constitution guarantees due process. He'll demand without a trial or a judge to keep the rule of law. You cannot act as jury, judge, and executioner. I'm sad to say, but little man, your theory isn't true. Due process is just this, a process that I do. And now you're on the list, and now you're on the list, 'cause the process that he does, that is what due process is. And that non-compliant nuisance who is just a waste of space. The nosy journalist, I've got him on the list. And the bitter people clinging to their guns and to their faith. They never would be missed. Our drones just do not miss. Those who approve my killing move my foreigners alone. We'll see the state expatriate, then hit them with the drone. And in the end, it doesn't matter what they think is true. The drones can kill you both abroad and in the homeland too. For a nation who gives up their rights and has a monarchist may well be on the list. You're all there on the list. He has put us on the list. He has put us on the list. For the tyranny we bought, we'll rule with an iron fist.
How do you like that, Gwen? That's homeschooling at its finest.
Yep, that's great.
I mean, seriously, though, that is parents that have taken an active interest in the education of their children, and that will rub off. That will make a difference and an impact when they become adults. You know, it's the same thing I do with my kids. They're not going to get indoctrinated in the damn public school and get fed a bunch of BS that they're never going to need to know.
Well, Joe, that's like I go back to the 5th grade textbook that the public school system here in South Dakota uses for social studies. And it's got the whole thing about the Twin Towers and that the Muslims did it. You know, I haven't seen any damn proof, not one bit, that the Muslims did any such thing. And, you know, so they're defining it within the school, the public school system, who the enemy is. And so that when they grow up, they don't have a problem having them as their enemy or killing them and their families with a drone.
Oh, exactly right. Exactly right. And it also feeds into the divide and conquer tactic, you know, that, Muslims are bad, you know, and everything else. But it's funny because, you know, a lot of Americans don't have the opportunity to actually go over there. But you go over there and guess what you find out? They're human beings, too. Oh, no.
Joe, I think the thing that is really overlooked on a social and community level in all of this, too, is that so many families are multicultural. And, you know, when I hear about the threat of Iran being bombed, it really bothers me because my relatives live in Tehran, you know, and I know the story firsthand about what things are from the Iranian point of view, not what mainstream media is selling us. And so I take issue with that. You know, I mean, we live in an international community. We have international families.
Right.
And, you know, nobody seems to think about that, you know.
We're running up against a break, Gwen, so hold that thought. And by the way, DHS right now is, you know, they got a profile on you now. Iranian people, I'll tell you what. Folks, we'll be right back. Last segment of hour number 1 on the way. Don't go away. You know, folks, Orion Talk Radio's got some great daytime programming as well. And boy, do we have a treat for you, because starting next week, Morning Brew hits the air. And, of course, the host for Morning Brew, why, she's right here. It's Gwen.
Yay, welcome, join us.
Yes, anybody that listens during the day, or, you know, remember, you can tune in at work. You can listen to us on the TV. You can use TuneIn. You can use Shoutcast. You can use the Roku box. There's a whole array of ways to listen to the Orion Talk Radio Network and to Morning Brew as well. So listen to Morning Brew. Morning Brew for next week will be on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then the following week, she goes 5 days. Oh, Lordy. So buckle in and just get ready, because it's going to be one of them there rides, if you will. So that's the Morning Brew. That's going to be every Monday through Friday after next week, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So it should be good, Gwen. So now
I'm
you should be
excited.
You should be. I mean, that's fantastic. And for the last segment of hour number one, I want to talk about something that I'm sure none of you out there have any idea that the economy is actually not so good. I know it. I know you guys are all just sitting high and dry out there in listener land, not worried about anything else. Don't worry. Everything's fine. And you remember 2 summers ago was the summer of recovery. We are recovering. We are in recovery. And even now they're saying, well, the recovery's kind of hit neutral right now. Is that right? Well, is that what you call it?
They're a comedy show.
It really is. I mean, they're just so unbelievably just asshats. That's the only way I can describe it. Sorry, Gwen. Copyright Gwen Caldwell 2011. Anyway, CNBC has an article, Real Unemployment Rate Shows Far More Jobless. Of course. The government's most widely publicized unemployment rate measures only those who are out of a job and currently looking for work. It does not count discouraged potential employees who have quit looking, nor those who are underemployed, wanting to work full-time but forced to work part-time. For that count, the government releases a separate number called the U6, which provides a more complete tally of how many people are out of work. The numbers in this case are startling. Consider this. Nevada's U6 rate is 22.1%. That's up 7.6% from 2007. How about California? California's got a rate of 20.3 real unemployment, while Rhode Island is at 18.3%, more than double their 8.3% rate in 2007. And those numbers compare especially unfavorably to the nation's national rate, high in itself at 14.9%, though off its peak of 17.2% in October 2009. And mind you, the U6 numbers aren't perfect either, because they've changed the way that they're measured. Now, before 1990, I think it was, they had a different way of measuring it, and if you use that pre-1990 standards, we're sitting right at about 20% nationally. And, of course, you look over at Spain, and you hear, well, Spain's got an unemployment rate of 25%. Okay, but they actually measure real unemployment. So that's a real 25%. Just like us right now, the real unemployment rate, Gwen, is about 20%.
Joe, I would tend to think that it's probably even higher than that, because I don't think that accounts for the small private proprietorships that have closed due to the economy, or the fact that they can't meet all of the new Agenda 21, socialist mandates to have their business doors open.
Right. And, of course,
So I think that number would prove to be much larger if it were really, really looked into. You know what I mean, as far as the actual number of unemployed.
Well, it's kind of like this, and Reagan said it best when he said, there are lies, there are damn lies, then there's statistics. And he's right. We can frame statistics to say just about anything we want. A.C. Griffith, his favorite statistical saying was, Gwen, 100% of cancer patients drink water.
I know, exactly.
But it's true. You know, what does that say because of the way we just framed that? If you drink water, you get cancer. Right. So, but do you see what I'm saying? So you can frame statistics to say anything you want. And that's the thing, is that they have manipulated everything from unemployment to debt to how much is on the Fed's balance sheets to the amount of money that's been printed that's out there. Everything has been manipulated to where you don't know what the actual truth is. You only know what they're telling you. And that is a serious problem because you're only told what they want you to know, not what you need to.
And what the Obama administration gives them permission to put on the mainstream news.
Right. And I'll be honest with you. There's enough money out there, enough money in order to feed everybody. There's enough money out there for there to be no one to go without health care. All that stuff is out there. The only thing you got to do is stop the nation building. Stop the nation building is number one. And number two, you have to have some sort of comprehensive immigration reform and protect the borders so that we don't have millions of illegal immigrants coming in and not only taxing the system as far as Medicaid and food stamps and things like that, but also if you look, and I don't have this article pulled up, but I've seen a couple of instances of this where they are defrauding the U.S. government. I think so far to date is $42 billion in fraudulent tax returns because they're able to claim just about everybody and their mother as dependents because they have this special immigration status, quote unquote. And so they file these false returns and they end up making a killing. I mean, just think about this. The absolute ineptitude of government. I mean, it's reaching an all-time high. When government gets big, it gets inefficient. It gets absolutely inefficient. So my problem is, where's the recourse for the American citizens? Where's the recourse for the public? Right now, you have an agency, the Internal Revenue Service, who are a bunch of flippin' thugs that wouldn't think twice to bust down your door and take your crap if you weren't paying or you were stealing or whatever. And they go and they steal from the American taxpayer. They steal. That's theft. Whether they want to admit it or not. It's theft, Gwen. They go and do that. And who holds them to account? You know, who holds Eric Holder to account for this Operation Fast and Furious that killed who knows how many people? So where is the American people? Where is their form of redress or their recourse that they get justice? And, of course, there is none.
And more than that, where is the outrage that they get none?
Oh, well, that's it, you know. And of course, the problem that we run into is that people are still very comfortable, and as long as they get up in the morning, make their coffee, go to work, come home, watch TV, get hammered, do whatever the hell they want to do, no problem, because it doesn't affect them directly. But all of this stuff is happening in their name. And by being silent, you consent to it. Isn't that right, Gwen?
Right. Well, Joe, when you've got over at least 50% of the country that's in a state of emergency for drought conditions, you've got Russia their crops have been absolutely obliterated.
Yes.
You know, and people think it doesn't affect them. I still have what I need. You know, I don't think they realize the cliff that we're staring over, and it's not even going to take a good wind. All it's going to be is a breeze, and it's going to push the American people right over the edge of that cliff. And they don't even see it, and they don't even care, and they don't even look. You know, they have this, they surround themselves with this idea that somehow they've got this safety net underneath them all the time called the government. They don't see that the safety net is the problem.
Well, therein lies the parallel between what you've just said and what I read at the beginning of the broadcast, that quote by Cicero. Because you don't. As a matter of fact, reality is 180 degrees out of phase, and it's being perpetrated by these traitorous scumbags that lurk in the shadows, the shadowy halls of government. And with that, folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way, and when we come back, we'll be talking about gun control and about the drought and about Iran. So don't go away. We'll be right back after the news. It's hour number 2 of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, along with my sidekick, Gwen Caldwell. And the main topic of hour number 2 is gun control. And it's kind of a deceptive thing that happened today, Gwen, and that was the Cybersecurity Act actually failed the vote in the Senate. And while it may be a short-lived victory, it reminds me of the SOPA Act. Remember when SOPA went down and we all fought long and hard and we gained a victory as SOPA was defeated? Well, yep. And you notice how they're right back at it with this BS Cybersecurity Act? Well, the reason why I bring up Cybersecurity Act, and for those that don't understand, that there's a bunch of riders on this Cybersecurity Act, one of which outlawed high-capacity magazines in the United States. Very, very interesting little rider on something that has to do with cybersecurity. But the Hill's reporting that the long battle for cybersecurity legislation ended Thursday as the Senate failed to pass a motion to end debate on the bill. Cybersecurity Act, introduced by Senator Joe Lieberman, the commie pinko scumbag, and Susan Collins, another commie pinko scumbag, was rejected on a 52-46 vote. 60 votes were required to move forward with the legislation. The bill's collapse likely kills any legislative action on cybersecurity this year, punting efforts to 2013. And for anybody's information, this is S3414. That would have increased cyber protections for the nation's electrical grid, financial networks, transportation system, and other critical infrastructure. Love how they frame that because, it's just going to make us so much safer. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid said the bill was critical for the nation's security, but the powerful U.S. Chamber of Commerce objected to the bill. And I love how he says that. It was critical to the nation's security. No, it was critical to your security, Mr. Reid.
Right, exactly.
See, that's what it has nothing to do with your protection, folks. It has everything to do with protecting the bureaucrats and these elitists, because, they need to know.
They have just a gazillion different ways to frame and identify the threat, but how they're going to protect us from these make-believe threats, and they're going to always do it by somehow infringing on our Second Amendment right, Joe. Doesn't that just make you angry?
Absolutely. I get freaking pissed every time I see this, and that's why, you call your non-representing representative and let him understand, him or her asshats, because we know what the truth is. We know why all this stuff is being put in place. Well, of course, they want to listen to what you're saying and what you're hearing. Just look at those NSA whistleblowers that came out a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about the facility in Utah that can store every communication on the planet for over 100 years. They can do that and then have, of course, the NSA employs the brightest of the bright mathematicians, computer geeks, the whole nine, with the express, what they're going to do is they write these algorithms, and these algorithms can put all of your communications in a nice, easy-to-read timeline, and they'll know exactly what you're doing, what you're thinking at any given point, at any time. It's very, very, very important to understand what the real purpose of this is.
This is our opportunity, is to preface everything you send with "I love my government," or "My government is good," or "My government is like candy." If they want to compile data, let's just really give them something to compile. Just put a bunch of George Carlin. Just copy it and send it everywhere. Let them sift through that.
Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, you're right. Now, Reed said, quote, "We know how important this legislation is. We know it's more important than getting a pat on the back from the Chamber of Commerce," Reed said Thursday. "That's why the Republicans are running like a pack of scared cats." Oh, is that really what it is? And does it really matter? Because don't the Republicans, don't they want this bill as well? Well, of course they do. Because they're the same people. They're the same as the Democrats. There's no difference between the two of them. So, in essence, they do. The problem is the bill just wasn't strict enough. It wasn't good enough for them. So they want to go back to the drawing board and actually bring this up in 2013. Now, you'll get this false sense of security when, and of course, the listeners to this broadcast know better than to fall for the Republicans have now taken over the Senate, and perhaps they win the presidency. And golly gee willikers, look at this. They're going to go and save the day. They're going to march in, and they're going to fix everything that's broken. And if you believe,
right.
Well, but they somehow, amazingly, get away with this crap, selling the same old song and dance time and time again, election cycle after election cycle, and people are totally bamboozled. But this bill specifically is extremely dangerous because of the riders that are on it. And one of those riders, of course, is to ban any magazine for guns with a capacity of 10 rounds or more. So you can only have a magazine up to 10 rounds. Anything outside of that would be illegal, which really it's really reinstituting the assault weapons ban that was put in place under Clinton. And that's what's so damn scary. Gwen? So it's important to understand and pay attention to what these asshats are putting through Congress, because they attach this stuff onto bills that have nothing to do with what the rider says,
And we know, Joe, that they don't even read the bills before they vote on them. They don't, they don't know whether there's a rider in there to infringe your Second Amendment rights or not, because they don't read the bills.
That's right. And another interesting thing, too. Now, high-capacity magazines, that's one. But how about registering ammo? If you got ammo, you got to register it.
Yeah.
Or making it illegal to purchase this stuff online.
What part of it shall not be infringed don't those asshats get? They took an oath to uphold the Constitution. The Second Amendment of that very same Constitution says that shall not be infringed. Do they? They can look up in blocks. 4th, the 7th, the 13th. It doesn't change. The definition of shall not does not change ever.
No, you're absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely right. And so what you have, Gwen, is simply this. It's just like Scalia said. Scalia said just last week, he said, that it's absolutely constitutional that they can regulate guns in the United States because there's been precedent dating back almost to the time of the Founding Fathers. Well, it's like I said a couple shows ago. If your buddy jumps off a bridge, are you going to follow? If everybody's jumping off that bridge, are you going to follow him? No, of course you're not going to follow him. It's suicide. Why the hell would you do that? Well, the same thing holds true here. To hell with precedent. Precedent has gotten us into the place that we're at. Respect for the rule of law and the Constitution is what needs to happen, because that's the only way that we are going to fix this. So, folks, don't go away. We're just getting started on this. I'm going to talk about Public Law 87 when we come back, and we'll also get into this UN Small Arms Treaty, especially Article 15. I want to talk about that as well. So don't go away. You're listening to the Freedom Link on the Orion Talk Radio.
Your abilities are awesome and may be called upon by concentrating your thought energy with definite purpose. Just concentrate and the power will be yours.
Welcome back, folks. You know, this whole idea of disarming the American public goes back a long way. Long way. But, of course, you have the State Department, which is run by these globalist wackos and controlled by the banksters and everything else. Well, they have to. I mean, just look at what the hell's going on right now. You telling me the banks don't control this? And you can look at State Department Memorandum 7277. If you look at that, that kind of spells out the gun control thing. But I want to bring to your attention Public Law 87-297. It was written by the 87th Congress, H.R. 9118. And this was dated September 26th, 1961. An act
Is that the
to...
Dick Act?
No. The Dick Act of 1902, I think it was. That actually prevented this kind of stuff from taking place. But this Public Law 87-297 is an act to establish a United States Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. This is 1961. Okay? And so let's go here. Section 2. An ultimate goal of the United States is a world which is free from the scourge of war.
Get up off the floor.
Yeah. All we do is wage war. What bullshit. Anyway, an ultimate goal of the United States is a world which is free from the scourge of war and the dangers and burdens of armaments, in which the use of force has been subordinated to the rule of law, and in which international adjustments to a changing world are achieved peacefully. Right, like Libya and Iran and Iraq and Syria and Ethiopia and Yemen, and you name it, we're there. And we're doing it peacefully too, aren't we, Gwen?
Oh, yeah.
So it is the purpose of this act to provide impetus towards this goal by creating a new agency of peace to deal with the problem of reduction and control of armaments, looking towards ultimate world disarmament. Arms control and disarmament policy, being an important aspect of foreign policy, must be consistent with national security policy in a whole. The formulation and implementation of United States arms control and disarmament policy in a manner which will promote the national security national security can best be ensured by a central organization charged by statute with primary responsibility for this field. This organization must have such a position within the government that it can provide the President, the Secretary of State, other officials of the executive branch, and the Congress with recommendations concerning United States arms control. So let's see here. The organization must have the capacity to provide the essential scientific, economic, political, military, psychological, and technological information upon which realistic arms control and disarmament policy might be based. So let's see here. Let's look at some of this. Let's go to Section 3. The term arms control and disarmament mean the identification, verification, inspection, limitation, control, reduction, or elimination of armed forces and armaments of all kind under international agreement, including the necessary steps taken under such an agreement to establish an effective system of international control or to create and strengthen international organizations for the maintenance of peace. Now, what you're seeing there is interesting because it says international organization, which you can look at as the United Nations. And that United Nations would be tasked under the Small Arms Treaty, Article 15, of disarming the American public. It's very, very interesting. Now, here's a little something, too. The Section 21 of this little thing, United States Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, there is hereby established an agency to be known as the United States Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. This agency, folks, was established in 1961 to disarm the American public.
What part? See, that's how they get around that it shall not be infringed.
Yeah, that's that
because
shall not.
They put it in the hands of the international community, just like Leon Panetta sitting in front of our Senate Arms Committee and telling them, "I'll go to the international community and decide what we're going to do, and then I'll let you Congress know," because we have no sovereignty. We have no. We have a de facto government. We have a corporation. And they're using the international community to run and rule everything that goes on in this country. Where is the outrage?
That's a good question. And, of course, like I said, this UN Small Arms Treaty takes into account all of this. And Article 15 states, in fulfilling the obligation of this treaty, states parties may seek inter alia legal assistance, legislative assistance, technical assistance, institutional capacity building, material assistance, or financial assistance. States in a position to do so shall provide such assistance. State parties may contribute resources to voluntary trust funds to assist requesting state parties requiring such assistance to implement this treaty. State parties shall afford one another the widest measure of assistance consistent with their respective legal and administrative systems in investigations, prosecutions, and judicial proceedings in relation to the violations of the national measures implemented to comply with obligations under the provisions of this UN Small Arms Treaty. And each state party may offer or receive assistance through the United Nations, international, regional, sub-regional, or national organizations, non-governmental organizations, or on a bilateral basis. And basically what this article says is that it is the duty and responsibility of all of the people and nations that signed this treaty to help one another out when it comes to disarming his or her country. So if the United States requires assistance in doing so, why, you call the Blue Hats in, and they assist in disarming you, which you would have to think would probably be the way that it happens if it's going to happen, because I would have to say, Gwen, that there would be more people in the military than not that would not go along with the disarmament of the American public. I just cannot see it. But, of course, then we have Katrina, where we saw they just did what they were supposed to do. So you know what I mean? The only reason why I could see the UN getting involved is if it gets ugly. What say you?
Well, I think the United Nations is going to make things ugly. That's what I say.
Yeah.
They have an agenda, and they have enough. They have enough wherewithal in their agenda. They've been working at it systemically for a very, very long time, and there will be events, and there will be those things that will happen, and they'll make them happen, so that you'll just happily turn over your guns for a little food, a little water, maybe a roof over your head, maybe a little electricity,
Right.
And
well,
so,
hold that thought, because we're going to break. Folks, you can check out get some great information on all this gun control garbage by going to libertygunrights.com, and that is probably the best resource that I have seen yet on this topic. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the USDA alert and also about this impending war with Iran. All that and more when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. If you want to listen to some great programming, then why don't you tune in to Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye every Wednesday and Friday from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and again on Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. Some fantastic broadcasting, that and many other shows here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. There's something for everybody here, so tune in and tell your friends about it. We're talking about the USDA alert and the fact that half of the U.S. counties within the United States now are designated as primary disaster areas. I mean, just think about that. This here, Gwen, the drought has to be one of the largest natural disasters in American history.
Joe, I saw photographs today. My friend, he lives in he's in more central South Dakota than I am, but he has this huge dam, and he waters his horses there. But we canoe and we fish on. I mean, it makes a huge lake. Of course, you can't do that in Oregon or you go to jail. But in South Dakota, we can still do that. And he posted pictures today, and it looks like a mud puddle. The whole dam is dry. I could not believe it. I just wanted to cry. So he's having to haul water to watering troughs for his horses. It's terrible. I mean, I have never seen anything like this ever.
Well, Max Salvo reporting for shithitthefanplan.com says sweltering heat and persistent drought across the country has ravaged crops to such extremes this summer that tens of thousands of farmers and ranchers are on the verge of financial ruin. The situation is so dire that it's prompted the U.S. Department of Agriculture to declare more than half of America a disaster area. This is the Seattle Times. It says more than half of all U.S. counties, that's 1,584 counties in 32 states, have been designated primary disaster areas this growing season, the vast majority of them mired in a drought that's considered the worst in decades. And the USDA uses the weekly U.S. Drought Monitor to help decide which counties they deem as disaster areas. And what that does is it makes ranchers and farmers eligible for federal aid and low-interest emergency loans. But this problem, Gwen, has far-reaching consequences for not only the farmers, but wouldn't that make the entire United States a disaster area because of a looming food shortage? I mean, think about it.
I'm telling you, Joe, food and water are going to be an issue. You and I have talked about this. Every time I get on the radio, I talk about this. I'm telling you people, get food, get seeds, store water. In that it's possible for you to catch rainwater and, I mean, the water police will come and take you to jail in Oregon. But,
right.
It's just, this is devastating. People are selling their cattle. So we've got, reduced prices on meat now, but come this fall, when the remaining cattle can't breed and they can't, they don't have a feed for their stock, we're going to see those prices skyrocket.
Exactly right.
Unbelievable. And not only that, a few shows ago, Joe, we talked about all of the products that have corn in them.
Oh, unbelievable amount. Right. I mean, corn is in everything, come to find out. And, of course, you can go to the U.S. corn, I forget, it's corn.org, and it's the Corn Refiners Association of America, I think it is. But they list everything that corn goes in, and it's amazing. But Tom Chatham of Project Chesapeake writes, corn and soybean meal are staples in animal feed, and the rising prices and drought conditions are forcing farmers and ranchers to sell off their herds for slaughter. This will cause a glut in the market over the short term, and you may see lower meat prices as a result, but this will only be temporary. By next year, the prices of meat will rise as the supply of livestock reaches multi-decade lows. Supply and demand will push prices higher as a result. Larry Pope, who's the chief executive, Gwen, of Smithfield Foods, has recently given a dire warning, said beef is simply going to be too expensive to eat. Pork is not going to be too far behind, and chicken is catching up as well. He also stated that government regulations are going to make everything even worse because almost 40% of the U.S. corn crop goes to make ethanol. Pope says it's almost a government-mandated disaster, which is distressing. And he warned that meat prices will rise by significant double digits. That sounds a little bit different, Gwen, than Agriculture Secretary Vilsack saying, well, it's only 14% of every dollar. 14 cents on the dollar is the cost of food and the production of a product. Really?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
really. Yeah, because that's what it's all about, So, I mean, do you see the BS? But, Larry Pope here said it best. This is a government-mandated disaster. They want this to happen.
Sure they do. And, Joe, they have done this. This is not global warming. This is not El Nino, El Nina, or any of that other garbage. What this is chemtrail spraying, superheating the planet because it's holding the heat in.
Yeah.
It's holding the heat into the atmosphere. And then they superheat it with HAARP. Wait till hurricane season hits.
Well, yeah, of course.
We haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, it's bad, And for those with the ability to do so, Shit Hit the Fan Plan recommends putting away food that your family eats regularly and then plan for at least 3 to 6 months of a window of upward price pressures. Now, Tess Pennington offered some drought preparedness tips, and I think this is very, very good information. Says the price increases will be dramatic. Expect to see fewer grocery store sales, especially those great loss leaders we all love to take advantage of. Prepare for this by stocking up now before the major price increases hit. For instance, purchasing bulk dried corn or cornmeal and a diverse supply of bulk meats before the prices rise. Pamper your garden and get every single ounce of produce you can squeeze out of it. Buy in bulk to take advantage of lower prices and preserve food for use this winter. If you've got a freezer loaded up with as much meat as you can afford to buy, package dry goods for the long term, and have a steady supply of beans, wheat or flour, corn and rice on hand to dip into if prices do happen to jump. While we all hope for a rainy year in 2013 to get struggling farmers back on their feet and our prices at the grocery stores to an affordable level, which is BS anyway, Gwen, because you know that once the prices go up, they very seldomly, if ever, go back down.
Yeah, it'll be just like gasoline. It'll never go back down.
That's right, because you get conditioned to pay a price for something, and it's just like now. If you look at the price of gasoline, and that's a great example, Gwen, right now I think it's trading anywhere between $85 and $90 a barrel, and the prices are at least where I am, price is $3.38 a gallon. If you look at when we started this whole crisis, this whole first round up, when we started to see $4 a gallon 4 or 5 years ago, the cost is not they're not similar. The cost now is much greater compared to the price per barrel than it was when that happened. As a matter of fact, the price per barrel when it was this cost back in 2007, 2008 was $120 to $125 a barrel. So you see the problem, Gwen?
Well, Joe, and there's even a bigger problem, too, because people are going to be buying less because they can't afford it. They're not going to go. They're not going to go buy more. I mean, even though the prices are going to go up, what they're going to do is they're going to start scrimping and not buying. So the states that have state sales tax that the states are dependent on for their operating budgets are going to be depleted. You know, the problems that they are creating now are so. I can't even begin to imagine 3 years down the road what this mess that they've made is going to look like.
Well, when we come back from break for the final segment, we'll talk about some of the ways that the IRS is trying to recoup some money. And you'll be floored to find out how that is. So don't go away, folks. We'll be right back to close the show out. Well, as we close out the broadcast for this Thursday evening, I'd like to remind everybody that the next broadcast is going to be Sunday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, that's the Conspiracy Chronicles here at the Freedom Link. So make sure you tune in for that and all the other great programming that Orion has to offer here. And so, Gwen, you know, we were talking about the ways in which the IRS may be able to recoup this money, because you know that with rising food prices, people are going to be spending more on food and less on other things. And there may not be as much tax money to go around. So
right. Well, and there's going to be more demand on the system, and there's less people working, and so they aren't ripping them off for their wage tax illegally.
So you did a little research, but you did a little research, and you found an interesting way that the IRS could make a few extra bucks.
I did. This is from the Americans for Tax Reform out of Washington, D.C., while 529 hardworking athletes proudly represent the United States in the 2012 Olympics, any medals and money they earn wearing red, white, and blue will be taxed by the IRS. According to research done by the Americans for Tax Reform Foundation, U.S. Olympic athletes are liable to pay income tax on medals earned and prizes received at the London Games. American medalists face a top income tax rate of 35%.
Get you some.
Under U.S. tax law, they must add the value of their Olympic medals and prizes to their taxable income. It is therefore easy to calculate the tax bite on Olympic glory. At today's commodity prices, the value of gold medal is about $650. Silver medal is worth about $385, while the bronze medal is worth under $5. There are also prizes that accompany each medal: $25,000 for gold, $15,000 for silver, and $10,000 for bronze, which I didn't know. I didn't realize that they...
Yeah, I didn't know there was a monitor, because I thought they were all amateur athletes and they weren't allowed to get paid for that.
So how much will the U.S. Olympic medal winners have to pay in taxes to the IRS? Well, if you win a gold medal, your...
total tax burden?
Total tax burden is $8,986.
Oh.
Silver, $5,385. Your bronze is $3,502. That's what the IRS is going to come knocking on their doors to receive. But
it gets even worse. It gets even worse.
Not only do our Olympic athletes have to pay taxes on their medals and prizes, chances are their competitors on the field will face no such taxation when they get home, because the U.S. is virtually the only developed nation that taxes worldwide income earned overseas by its taxpayers. Our Olympic athletes face a competitive disadvantage that has nothing to do with sports. How do you like that, Joe?
Yeah, hey, you know what? That's quite a windfall for the government there, huh? You win a gold medal, you pay $9,000 to Uncle Sam for that freaking metal. And I bet you drill through that metal, and I'll bet you it's tungsten in the middle.
Oh, it is. It is, and that's why they only value it at
$675, right? Yeah.
Right, because it's only a small percentage of actual gold.
So how do you like that? You know, these kids worked their butt off to get there, right? They get the medal, and Uncle Sam's got his frickin' hand out saying, "Come on, baby, you know, or I'm going to break your damn legs." Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me sick, Gwen.
Where's the outrage?
Where's the outrage? I don't think anybody really
I think what should happen is that all of the United States Olympic team should boycott the Olympics.
Yeah.
I think, really, I mean, how many people in this country would support the Olympics and watch the Olympics so that they get all their big advertising money out of United States companies if they knew our athletes were being taxed like that?
Yeah, and I'll bet you
it's an outrage.
Well, actually, that's the first I've ever heard of it. So, I mean, that's amazing. And I'll bet you very few Americans know that. You know, this didn't get any mainstream media coverage, nor will it. So that's just crazy. And for our last story of the evening, folks, former Mossad chief to Iranians, be fearful of the next 12 weeks. Because according to Israel, the window of opportunity for striking Iran is closing. Now, my thing is, the United States technically has no bone to pick with Iran. Iran has never once attacked one of their neighbors. They've been attacked. You know, the last time they were really attacked was the Iran-Iraq war. And the only reason why Iran got involved is because the U.S. was pushing their little puppet, Saddam Hussein. Oh, yes, folks, he used to be one of our buddies. And we armed him, and he went and attacked Iran. But it wasn't Iran that attacked them. They have no intercontinental ballistic missile or any missile technology that can hit us. And to be quite honest with you, this is just another one of those things the United States, or more so, the elitists, the banksters, the ancient bloodlines, the Illuminati, if you will, the CFR.
And the Zionists and Netanyahu.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all in on this, and it's to take over that Middle East. They want the Middle East.
Joe, Iran is one of 3 countries left in the world that doesn't dance with the Rothschilds and the bankers.
You're right. They actually don't want the dollar for oil. They never wanted it, just like Saddam. Saddam takes his country off the oil standard, off the dollar, as using it as the world reserve currency, and he says, I'm going to take euros or yen from now on. And what do you know? He's attacked and taken out and hung.
Gaddafi too.
Gaddafi the same way, absolutely. You know, he brings water to the desert. People don't pay electricity. Hell, you get half the car paid for. All sorts of things because they take that oil revenue and instead of nation build and go crazy trying to attack everybody,
they help their people.
Helps the people. And wouldn't you know it, there's money to go around for everybody. And so he says, I'm going to show the rest of the continent of Africa how easy it is to be able to utilize your resources, to sell them on the world market, and to provide for your people. And at the same time, he was trying to start a currency, an African currency, backed by gold or other tangible assets, and only accept tangible assets or currency backed by tangible assets for his oil. And by God, the oligarchs and the powers that be couldn't take that, so they had to take him out. And Iran is just another country that won't play ball. As a matter of fact, Gwen, they've recently taken gold for oil from countries like India and some South American countries. Go ahead.
Ahmadinejad, people think he's crazy, and because he has the audacity to stand in front of the United Nations and call out the United States and call them by their real name, and, calls them out for destroying the world economy. But when he does anything to ensure that his country is not affected by that, then they want to take him out.
That's right.
What is really sad is that he's really a humble man, and he really does help his people. He doesn't live in the presidential palace. He doesn't get presidential pay. That he's a guardian of the people's money,
right?
And he sweeps the floors, and you can find him there with the janitors cleaning, because he's there to serve the people. When have you ever seen a president of this country out sweeping the sidewalks on Pennsylvania Avenue, for God's sakes?
And you won't either.
But this is the guy. This is the guy that's such a big threat, and they just have to have a war with him.
Yep, and they're going to get it too. And according to the Mossad, it's within the next 12 weeks. Be fearful of the next 12 weeks. So whatever you can infer from that, do so, because the consequences could be pretty significant.
Do you know how many Iranians we have in this country?
A ton.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
That's right.
For us to get involved in any kind of conflict with them.
And with that, folks, we wrap up this broadcast for this Thursday evening. Don't forget, the next broadcast is Sunday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. Up next is the Mabe Russell Archives. So don't go away. And don't forget, starting Monday morning, Morning Brew here on the Orion Talk Radio Network, 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we'll see you again on Sunday evening. Thanks for listening, folks.
Good night.